Firstly, I'd like to start by saying I do not envy any marketers today. You can't hear me? Okay, so how's that? Thank you. A marketer's job today is just a very, very difficult one. Obviously, what is being coined as the long media tail is making life very difficult. There are many new things to try and keep on top of. We've been hearing about social media already this morning. It's just one. I know there's a lot of anxiety just trying to keep on top of things, trying to test and learn and understand what's working and how you can do it better. The pressures are not reducing. That said, it's a very exciting time too. So many of the rules that we had followed for many years with TV and print, the brave can throw up in the air and really start to experiment. So some of the things I'm going to be talking about today are really the two questions that Gareth posed in his introduction, questions that he frequently gets from clients. I have to say, I work across all industries, with advertisers directly, with media owners and with ad agencies. And the questions really aren't very different. And they do match those two questions. How does online actually fit? What is it capable of? Help me understand the hype from, some really good quality work that we can produce. And in the 5,000 odd studies that we've done, now that ranges everything from internet campaign evaluation in terms of branding metrics, the same metrics that you would use to evaluate your offline work. And we're also have done many studies. I think that it's up to about 300 cross-media studies now, constantly evolving area of work. So they're the things I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about online marketing or web marketing in terms of best practices for measurement. I don't think there's anybody here who would disagree with the statement that there is a plethora of data available for online. People talk about it being the most measurable media. And I've just seen about 6 people go, I quite agree. Just because there are numbers that are available, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily useful. Some really are, however. So that's what I do, is work with companies to try and understand what we should really be taking notice of and what we can comfortably ignore. And also in terms of best practices with creative. In the 5,000 studies across many different industries, obviously including luxury and finance and car, you do see trends. You do see some best practice evolving, and you see, advertising across the board doesn't just work because it's out there. We know that. And it's about trying to understand what's working and why. So I've prepared for you today a look, you could call it a normative database, so pulling together all the studies that we've done to try and understand what the best performing campaigns have in common. What can we learn from that? And also the worst performing campaigns, what can we learn from that too? And the good news is, for marketers, is that this is not rocket science, and so much of what you find works offline works online too. So here is a chart that is a case study from a cross-media study. So this was actually a luxury car brand, and we were evaluating the brand effectiveness of the campaign in totality. Now what we're looking at here is the percentage of campaign effect from each media and from synergy as well. So we're trying to explore here each media channel and its incremental role to play, essentially, and also, on top of that, the synergistic effect. So you can see the top bar there, 13%, is basically the interaction synergy benefit from this campaign. I am boiling down here a huge media mix study. multi-regression analysis and all sorts of things. It's a huge area of work. And actually to disentangle all the different variables that do impact a brand and any brand impact that a campaign can create is really tough work. It is not as simple as putting a survey out there. There's a lot of modelling that goes into producing work like this. I get asked almost every time I present anything like this is, well, what happens across the board? And truthfully, in 300 studies, there aren't enough trends to really pull together yet. It's still very embryonic work. What can be really useful about cross-media or multimedia measurement is to try and understand efficiencies. Now, what we see in this graph here is basically different media components matched against frequency of exposure. And you can actually see where the point of diminishing returns occurs with individual media. Now, in this particular example, this was a single campaign. TV was actually the top performer for persuasion metrics, as it often is. Persuasion metrics being moving brand favorability, brand attributes, and intent to purchase the brand or product or service. What we were also able to understand was that 45% of the actual budget spent on TV could have been spent better on other media. In this particular case, outdoor was introduced too early, we think, and the internet advertising was run at too low a frequency to achieve a movement on persuasion metrics like brand favorability and purchase intent. It's very capable of doing it. In parts, we observed that people who are exposed about the 8 or 9 range, which is actually really quite high for internet advertising, you can optimize that. So you can see how you can learn some very interesting things from doing cross-media research and trying to make your overall media budget work a lot harder, save you money, and give you a better impact overall. Now, one of the things I hope you would have seen from that is, that the internet is not a discrete channel that works all on its own with all mystic rules. It is just another route to market, another way to engage. Yes, it does have some very special things about it as well, but they're not discrete. They work together nicely, and there is consistently a synergistic effect across media, especially with media properties like newspapers. If we're talking, I haven't actually done a study on the FT, but what I would expect to find is brand fans who will use who will be exposed to many different parts of the FT brand would be much more, susceptible, I suppose, or much more open to marketing messages, and therefore their persuasion metrics would be much higher. So when talking about how to measure and what to take notice of in terms of metrics, now, a pretty common practice with online advertising is to measure and optimize using data that's freely available, like click-throughs or clickstream data. Now, depending on the objective of your campaign, depends on the validity of this as a way to optimize or even evaluate any of your online activity. Now, we did a study, this is an academic study that was released and peer-reviewed, and the key research question was to try and uncover this and try and see essentially what is that relationship between a behavioural metric like the mouse, measuring the mouse, and measuring the mind, because they're not necessarily, they're not the same thing, and they are trying to do different things. So the key research question: could ad server metrics like click-through rates, rich media interactions, and expansions of ad units be proxies for assessing brand performance of campaigns rather than doing in-depth type studies?